everybody, and welcome back to Monday.
To this thing, whatever it is, in my awful hair, whatever that is.
Here we are, back in the back in the studio, doing whatever that thing we do. But before we dive in real quick, today's show is brought to you by CloudberryLab.com. Check them out. Actually, CloudberryLab.com/FRD for a free offer. And they make backing up a hell of a lot easier. Bring your own data, bring your own cloud. Check them out. They're good stuff. They're good people, actually.
Yeah, the product is awesome. My review is up. I don't remember when that went up last week sometime, but this is something everyone should look at. I mean, from just for you as an individual or whatever. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
That it is. Speaking of reviews, Paul.
A piece of wait. Before you talk about that, though, Brad.
Yep.
You went to the Apple Store on Saturday. What happened?
Oh, that's right. Follow-up time. So, it's pretty anti-dramatic. I will tell you this. The worst part about going to the Apple Store is actually going to the Apple Store. Because there are, I think, 7 billion people on this planet, and I think there were approximately 6.5 billion people in line at the Apple Store when I got there.
What were they doing? Buying new products or getting service, Brad? How would you describe the...
I would say it's a good 50-50, if maybe not 3/4 of the people were there for help.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a healthy proportion were there, just getting help. And I suspect that most of Apple's retail overhead is actually people just fixing stuff. So.
Yeah, I think so.
But anyway, so I got there. Got in line. My appointment was at 2:10. It was probably about 2:20 when I actually got up to the front of the line with the little guy with the iPad telling me where.
Still haven't mastered the notion of reservations at the Apple Store, I see. Okay.
Yep.
Somebody told me one time I waited 30 minutes for my appointment, and he said, "Sorry, it's I can't remember the phrase he used. He's like, it's just Saturdays are always hellacious or whatever." And I said, "Then why don't you figure out the reservation system? Because my time isn't free, and I was supposed to be helped 30 minutes ago." It's like I find that kind of thing to be unbelievable. But by the way, 5 stars on Consumer Reports for customer service. They're amazing. But go on. I'm sorry.
Anyways, moving on. So once I actually got up to the guy, and because I had Apple Care, he looked at it. He did 2 tests. One tested the battery capacity, or whatever they call it, longevity.
Yep.
And my battery was down to 69% health.
And that's just 2 years.
That's less than that. That's a year, about a year, 14, 15 months, something like that.
I don't know what to make of that. Do you think that's bad or good?
He said it was actually pretty bad.
A lot.
He asked, he's like, "Hey, are you a very heavy user of your phone, or did you
I would
just
say
get a
you
bad
are."
phone?" And I was like, "Yeah, I actually hit it pretty hard." He said they would have expected it to be somewhere around 80% at that point.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah. And so he looked at it, he said, "That's not really a reason why we replace a phone." And then I showed him the issue with the screen. He said, "Okay." He said, "That's enough." And then he did his, as he put it, contractually obligated testing techniques where they plug it in and run diagnostic stuff and it downloads the data. And then he said, "All right, I'm just going to grab you a new phone."
So this issue where your touch points were like an inch off or something, right?
Yeah, it was like a quarter of an inch. Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, did he seem to think that this was a fairly, like, he saw this, he's like, "Oh, yeah, we've seen this before."
He didn't really say much. They do this little test where they put up a total white screen, and then they have a pointer thing, and they just drag it across looking for areas. And what you could see there is that at the edges, on the left side of the edge, it was shifted ever so slightly, and on the right side, according to the test, it was actually off the screen.
Oh, jeez. And so it's like the whole thing had shifted over.
Yeah.
The touch sensor or whatever.
Yep. So he went in the back, grabbed his little white box, slid a phone out, pulled out my SIM, and then it took 15 minutes, and then it's essentially.
So you restored your phone using the previous one. So it's the same phone, same storage, yada yada yada. So what do you have, an 6S?
This is a 7. This is a 128 gig iPhone 7.
Oh, that's great. Wait, is that what you had before?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought you had an older one.
Nope. Well,
so actually, 69% after a year, 15 months, whatever that is. That's a year and a half at most. Yeah. That's tough. That's not good.
Yeah. So it explains why my battery sucked. But I will say, and I don't know if it's placebo, but the phone feels faster. Like, it definitely does. Like,
Well, you know what? I don't know how iPhones store things. You know, there was the reason we used to defrag stuff on the PC was that you could optimize for two things. One was back in the days of like actual spinning disks. If you get toward the middle of the disk where the the circumference, I guess you'd call it circumference, diameter, circumference was smaller, it would actually be faster, but also just from just for read write aspects, like if a program was split over different parts of the platter and the little thing had to go flying across to access different parts of the same program, that was hugely inefficient. So what you want is everything to be kind of compacted toward the front. Now, obviously, solid state storage doesn't work the same way, but I bet you do get a benefit of just when you restore everything, it just kind of piles it all together. Like your stuff, as you add and delete apps over time and whatever photos come off the phone, whatever it is, you probably have these giant gaps. And again, I'm betraying the fact that I know nothing about solid state storage, but I bet it's related to the fact that you essentially restored it from scratch,
But relatively, painless. It took.
It's like the pictures it takes are better now. The the screen's brighter. It's no, it's good.
I would say I was there probably 45 minutes. So
yeah. Well, you know what though? You walked out of there with a new phone, essentially. I mean, a refurbished phone is basically it's a new phone. I mean, that's neat. That's really good. That's a good outcome.
Yeah. So no real complaints. The whatever I paid for AppleCare, which was like $149 or something for 2 years.
Yeah, that paid for itself right there. Yeah, I would say.
Well, yeah, because they show you the receipt. It said this would have cost $319, and
yeah, no, that's good. That's that's good to know.
Yeah. Speaking of good to know, Paul, Microsoft documents the limitations on Windows 10 ARM.
Yeah. With a document titled "The Limitations of Windows 10 on ARM," I would say most of these were probably known in advance. It was kind of interesting to see them collected together. The big one, well, no, I wouldn't even call it a big one. One of the ones that maybe people were wondering about was Hyper-V, right? So Hyper-V is not supported on Windows 10 on ARM. We talk a lot about fragmentation with things like Android in particular, but there is a kind of fragmentation that occurs in Windows, and it happens through the different SKUs, right, that you have in Windows 10, for example. An easy one is you can read any BitLocker encrypted disk with Windows 10 Home, but you can only create those disks with Windows 10 Pro or higher. And it's like these seem like kind of arbitrary, weird things. But when you introduce a new platform, like a hardware platform, like we're doing with Windows 10 on ARM, you get into a whole different kind of fragmentation where some things like legacy desktop apps will work, but they'll be slower. And then some features are just not available, and that's what that was about. I in some ways, I found the feedback to that article to be more interesting than the actual list of limitations. And I feel like I address this topic a lot, but there's a weird thing with tech enthusiasts where they, you could support Apple or in this case Microsoft and Windows or whatever, and you just love this stuff, and then you get all like bitchy about it when stuff isn't like exactly what you want. And I actually think it's kind of reasonable for Windows 10 on ARM to have certain limitations, in that when you look at that platform, when you look at always connected PC, when you look at things like Andromeda and Polaris that may or may not be coming in the future, and Microsoft's goal with S mode and making Windows simpler and blah blah blah, all this stuff, there's always these people who are kind of on the fringe, and they're always like the most vocal and enthusiastic of the supporters of the platform, right? When in fact 99 something % of all users will be fine with this product, right. No doubt about it. And that the overwhelming impact of this thing is positive. And it's like, well, like if I can't have Hyper-V support, I can't use this thing. Then, or it was like, remember developers used to be saying, what Microsoft needs to do next is bring Visual Studio to the store so we can access it on Windows 10s or whatever. And it's like, guys, seriously, that's not what this is about. And I think one of the things that's happening today in the Windows world that's very interesting is there's a gigantic segment of the population, again, 90-something % plus, that will be well served by something way simpler than today's Windows as we know it. And Microsoft's trying to get to that goal. That doesn't leave everyone else out. There will always be developers. There will always be gamers. There will always be power users of whatever stripe. that need advanced features that will be available in the Pro / workstation / whatever you want to call it, SKU or SKUs of Windows. So, I just like the notion of complaining that something simple is not going to meet your needs is kind of ludicrous. Right. And I feel bad that we can't rise above that level of discourse when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I don't have anything intelligent to say.
Well, yeah. It's just, I just wish it wasn't like that, because again, these guys are probably the most enthusiastic. My cat's freaking out.
I can see your cat. Yeah.
Yeah, she's this happened over the past couple of weeks, and then in force over the past weekend. The cats have been slowly coming downstairs. Oh boy, do not push everything off on my desk. That was really close.
We pardon this interruption for a small cat attack.
Yeah, sorry. Well, they've been locked upstairs. They could always come down. There's a gate, but I mean, they've been basically locked upstairs the past 3 months, and they've been probing the dog to see what's up. And we've had some really interesting interactions. But this weekend, like the two cats were like, "Nope, we're just coming downstairs," and they just started walking downstairs. It was crazy. Like we had people over, and all of a sudden the cats were there, and the dog, the dog's there was like, mm-hmm. And there's been these face-to-face things where the dog will get right in the cat's face, and they both like kind of sniff each other, and then the dog starts to get excited, and the cat's just like, and then the dog kind of backs off, and the cat's like, "Doot, doot, doot, doot. I'm doing my thing. Just leave me alone." And I don't know. I think a sense of normalcy is returning. Anyway, regardless of my cat and her desire to destroy my desk, I don't even know what I was talking about.
So again, you and Mary Jo have a lot in common when it comes to cats.
Yeah. The dog would love to play with the cats. The cats think the dog is ridiculous and not a threat. So that's been the end of that.
End of that. Speaking of end of that, or actually, that's a terrible transition, but we'll go for a pass. Finally reviewed this thing. The post will be, by the time this podcast is out, the post will be live on Thurrott.com. So, Paul, this is the Kit Sound Voice 1, I think is the name.
Kit? Like the car from Knight Rider Kit?
Yes.
That's too bad.
Although they missed the opportunity to put a little like a
red light or whatever.
Yeah,
the Cylon light.
So here's the kind of quick nutshell of this thing. First off, I compared it against these guys. So this is the Amazon Echo 2nd Gen. This is the Harman Kardon Invoke. This is the speaker itself, and then the Sonos One back here. And this thing, it's interesting in some regards because, for example, it has a USB port on the back, but that's not to like load up music. That's actually so if you're plugged into a wall, you can actually use this thing to charge your phone still. It has, which is nice. It has,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, it has line-in support, so like 3.5 millimeter, whatever, plug in your line. It also supports Bluetooth, and so it's got a lot of options to support playback. But that's kind of where the good stuff ends, if I'm honest.
Right. How's the sound quality?
Like I said, that's kind of where it ends.
Is it a laptop speaker, Brad? Is that what?
So of all these devices back here, I'll put these kind of in order of quality here. So the Harman Kardon's probably, I would, it might beat the Sonos One, but these two are pretty close.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
The Harman Kardon sounds better than the Sonos One?
Well, it's close.
Wow.
It's a lot bigger. Is kind of the reason why. But
God, I mean, it's too bad it doesn't run a better assistant and or could be paired in stereo. That makes that very interesting.
Well, yeah, very specifically, yes, just in sound quality. If this thing ran Amazon's thing, or Google's for that matter,
that'd be very interesting.
But both of those speakers are noticeably better than the Amazon, noticeably better.
Right,
and this machine back here, which is the tallest at 15 and a quarter inches high, that's a 7x7 base, 7-inch square, by the way. It's much closer to the Amazon.
That's amazing.
Now here's the big problem, Paul. How much do you think this speaker costs?
I mean, I've never heard of this company. I would assume it's cheap, $99 or less, hopefully.
No, so see, at that price point, it'd probably be okay, but it's $150. That's
too much.
That's
I mean, the Harman Kardon was too much at that price, but mostly because of the assistant. I mean, the sound quality, and again, the ability to stereo pair if it was there, would make that kind of interesting.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the problem here is that this thing is great if you want like true flexibility with Amazon built in because it'll playback take basically anything.
Right.
The problem is that the sound quality, especially,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to hear here, but like this is a big hollow cavern, which should allow it to have really good lows because it's so freaking big, but it really doesn't. Like it's really muted. The other problem with it is too, and it's not going to show up well here, is that first off, everything is plastic except for this kind of like meshy thin material. But here, the volume button, which is right here, and the light is around the inside to let you know. It's very liberal with the movement, like back and forth, and I don't think it's supposed to be like that.
Okay.
Like it only turns, but this thing, like you can rotate it all around and whatnot.
It's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, the build quality is just not there for $150.
Yeah, I don't have the name in front of me, but I had reviewed sort of something like a Riva something that's a Google Assistant something that also offers actually AirPlay support and Chromecast support. It has line in, it has Bluetooth, I think. And it's the same thing. It's not as cheap as that, but it's not as good as it's like it looks sort of like a Sonos, and you're like, okay, here we go. This could be the one, and then you kind of use it, and you're like, all right, I'll listen to podcasts on this thing when I'm in my in the bathroom getting ready or something. But it's never going to be like a whole house solution, unfortunately.
Yep. And so that's kind of the crux of the issue. Although I can tell you that this thing does not leave any marks on a well-oiled wood table.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder, the ultimate actually you have a Sonos One there, right in front of you. Do you have it right there? Oh, it's not on the table, is it?
No, it's not. It's okay. Plugged in.
So I guess the Sonos One and the HomePod both have some kind of whatever the material is the base is made out of is kind of a like not sound dampening, well maybe just vibration dampening, because those things they crank out sound.
Right.
So you actually need to prevent the speaker from shaking off the table, right? So it has this thing, this base that's made out of whatever rubbery type material. But I guess that's what's responsible for the rings. And it kind of makes sense. Not that it's staining it, but that it needs this kind of a base. Whereas that cheap piece of junk has no such need. It's never going to reach the point where it's going to be vibrating that much because once you turn it up, it probably gets distorted and you just don't want it to be that loud. And
so it's just... It's big is kind of like this thing.
It's crazy how big it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's taller than the laptop, and this is the 15-inch version of the Surface Book 2, and you can see it's inch taller. I don't know. The price point is what kills me on this. It's a good alternative if it was like $89 to something like that, but I would not put it in the same category anything close to the Sonos One or even the Harman Kardon at $99. So.
Maybe it will get down to that point, and then it will probably just disappear.
Yeah, we'll see. They're a company out of the UK, and they're trying to come into the US, and this is their first product. So,
and it is Amazon based, right?
Yes, yeah. No, they didn't indicate if they're ever going to add Google or Cortana for that matter. But yeah. Oh, the other interesting thing, and I might just be dumb. There is a remote with this. It's out of the reach, which is kind of nice. But so you have up here, the top button allows you to change input from like Amazon to Bluetooth, the line in or whatever, play, pause. And then there's this button blank thing down here. It's KS, which I'm assuming stands for Kit Sound. And it's actually a light. And I have no idea when and why it comes on.
That's awesome. Is it red?
No, it's white.
They really have screwed everything up here.
Well, this middle light will turn red when you mute the microphone. I don't know if it's volume. Like it came on occasionally, and I wasn't really too interested. I was really just checking to see if Amazon worked pretty well, or the Echo. I don't want to say the name because it'll blow up my office. Worked, and it does. It works just fine. But again, for the audio quality, which is I think the primary reason people buy speakers, it's just not there. So. A
smart speaker that doesn't sound good is not very smart.
You're not wrong.
Yep.
You're not wrong. You got anything else for today, Paul?
Not really. It's kind of a half day here. It's a holiday, technically. I don't know. Your kid must be home from school. Mine is. Originally, she was going to have her friends from Dedham here for the long weekend, and they all ended up bailing. So we're kind of stuck with this teenager now. So we decided to, Stephanie's out doing something with her this morning, going to thrift shops and stuff. And so this afternoon, we're actually doing something kind of cool. There's a local minor league baseball team, the Iron Pigs. They are like the farm team for the Phillies.
Yep.
And we've been to a game in the past, but we actually bought a 9-game package of tickets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I was talking about doing this before, and I was like, look, I don't know how much this is going to cost, but I think it'd be kind of fun just to watch these baseball games. And she comes in and she's like, well, these tickets are like $100. And I was like, oh boy, $100. I'm like, times 2 times 9. I'm like, that's getting up toward like the Celtics tickets I used to buy. Like, that's really expensive. And she goes, no, not per ticket, for the entire season. Oh. And I was like, oh.
Well, there we go.
Yes, we can absolutely do that. I was literally thinking like $1,800. I'm like, it's the first year here. We should just kind of enjoy it. And she's like, what is wrong with you? It's it's $100 for each ticket for the 9 games. It's like $10 a piece.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's cheap. So we're going to go to the stadium today, and we bought some tickets, but we're going to look at some other ones and just see if it makes sense to move somewhere else or whatever. But anyway, that's what's going on here.
I have a nice little tie in there, Paul. Because I know you watched the Genesis Open this weekend on CBS.
I don't even know what that is, but go on.
Bubba Watson,
I don't.
a friend of the Cincinnati area, won the tournament. This is golf, by the way, for people who don't know. He won the tournament, and he is also a partial owner of the Blue Wahoos, which is a minor league baseball team that feeds into the Cincinnati Reds franchise.
Oh, by the way, I think one of the games we have is a Cincinnati game.
Yeah, it might be against.
I think so.
Them. So.
Yeah, we have Scranton and Rochester, where my son is, and actually we have a Pawtucket Red Sox game, which is the Providence area based farm team for the Red Sox.
You know what also is absolutely glorious, Paul? It is 64 warm degrees outside right now.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but we literally had 6 inches of snow. Actually, here's an interesting little aside for you or anyone else who pays attention to this stuff. I've complained about the lights and the electricity in this house a lot, right? And we spent tens of thousands of dollars fixing it. One of the goofy things about this house, I thought, was that my father put like spotlights, I guess, or whatever, or like big lights. What do you call those things? Just like outdoor lights. Floodlights, thank you. Up on the top of the house, all around. And so there are these goofy switches, like in my bathroom off of the bedroom. There's a wall switch, and you kind of click it. Like, what does this thing do? It turns on this spotlight or floodlight that goes down and lights up the entire backyard for some reason from the bedroom. I don't know why you'd want to do that. I guess maybe you heard a burglar or something. So I've always found these lights to be ridiculous, and we've never used them for anything. And I don't understand why he did it. But was it Saturday night? Yeah, Saturday night we had the big snowstorm, and it was snowing like unbelievably fast. It was really heavy snow. And we had my sister and her family over, and we couldn't see the snow outside, but you could tell it was snowing a lot. And I was like, wait a minute. So I went and turned around. I turned on all the floodlights, and actually it was beautiful. You could really see the snow.
Wow.
So that expense was well worth it for that one day that I've used it since we've been here. It was great. So, it was nice. Yeah. And now the snow's all melting because it's going to be like in the 60s, possibly even 70 this week.
It's supposed to be 74 warm degrees here tomorrow, and I've actually already lined up a driving range date with my neighbor.
Nice.
And we're going to go to the driving range tomorrow because I'd actually go
I've
today.
not lined up anything like that, but I will go for a walk.
I would go today, but I have a 4-year-old, and
not conducive to walking.
Yeah, it's not going to work out so well.
You do the Yoda thing where you just kind of carry around in a little backpack.
That works when they're like 9 months old.
Yeah,
not when she's like, 35, 40 pounds and you're trying to swing a 9-iron. Honey duck. Come through the...
Oh, boy.
Alrighty. Am I still on the Miracast? Oh, I am. Miracast has not died yet. That is absolutely fantastic. All right, folks, today's show is brought to you by cloudberrylab.com/FRD. Go check them out, grab a free trial offer, learn how to back yourself up and protect yourself from ransomware. And we'll be right back here tomorrow on a non-presidential holiday thing here in the U.S., whatever you want to call it, for the reason why my kids are home. But have yourselves a wonderful day.